if I met you in person, I definitely would want to ask you what's coming up, what's on your mind, especially for the community, for the technology, for the ecosystem.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the things that I think just are really important in Ethereum and to the ecosystem and to the ecosystem's growth over the next few years. Like the biggest switch that I think we're going to be seeing or we're already seeing between the last decade and the current decade is that in the last decade, there was a pretty big focus on theory, right? There was a big focus on solving theoretical problems, on solving things like scalability, proof of stake, privacy, like all kinds of issues. And like if you watch my presentations from like 2015, 2017, 2019, I would always just constantly talk about the same three things, right? I would constantly say we need to have proof of stake, we need to have scalability, we need to improve security for users, we need to improve security for applications, we need to have privacy. It's just always the same problems that I would talk about. And the big shift this decade, I think, is that a lot of those problems on the technical side are really moving forward to having technical solutions, right? So the merge, finished almost 1 year ago, and that was an effort that took a huge number of researchers, developers, and engineers to like really get from start to finish and deploy. It took years of research, years of development, years of coordination, and finally it's done. And finally, yeah, Ethereum has become a proof of stake chain. And then, in addition to proof of stake, there's scalability. And with scalability, about a few years ago, we made this decision to take this roll-up centric roadmap where we basically focus on growing the layer two ecosystem and giving layer twos a lot of room to prosper and develop their own scaling. And after a few years, it really feels like we're on the cusp of the layer two transition actually like coming out, right? We have Arbitrum, and Arbitrum is basically operating at a stage one level at this point, in the sense that like it actually has a high level of on-chain decentralization. Polygon is very close to the same place. Like Optimism. Like fraud proofs are getting nearer and nearer. Like Scroll is launching soon. There's this like big growth in all of these layer two projects, and layer two projects are really important because they reduce fees, right? And like fees are just the biggest bottleneck to people actually being able to do things on chain and like actually use the blockchain. And in addition to fees, like user experience is the other big one, right? Like the story that I always tell is my first trip to Argentina back in December about 2 years ago. And I remember just being so excited to see like just how many people in Argentina were actually using blockchains and or I guess cryptocurrency more specifically, right? Like lots of people are actually like using stable coins, ETH, Bitcoin to like actually save their money for transactions. And I thought that was like really amazing, right? But there was a big issue, right? Which is that most of these people were not using the blockchain. They were using Binance accounts, right? And the reason why is obvious, right? Binance to Binance transfers are instant and Binance to Binance transfers are free. And like at that time, when I tried to actually use the blockchain, it took like 5 minutes for the transaction to get confirmed. By the way, that's something which is fixed now because after EIP 1559, it's basically gone down to 10 seconds, right? And the fee was like $5. And like layer twos can potentially solve the problems on the fee side, right? So, and then basically, yeah, what we're seeing in the next decade, I think, is that as the problems start to get solved on the technical side, the bigger problem is really kind of getting closer to the end user and getting closer to what you might call the human half of the problem, right? And the human half of the problem, like basically, is like like the last mile, right? Like like how do we actually make it easier and practical for like regular people to benefit from the technology, and for like lots of like actual use of the blockchain to become possible. And that's something that requires a lot of development from the techno geeks working on things like rollups and zero knowledge proofs. And the big theme for the last few months has been account abstraction and smart contract wallets. But it also just like requires all of this work of like figuring out the fine details of what's the version of this that actually will like get into people's hands as users, right? And I think things like that are going to be much more the big theme for the next.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to stop you there. There is a lot of wow. Yeah, there's a lot. Um, but just so that I'm carrying the conversation. I'm hearing that there's a lot of research and development going into with regards to scalability, making the transactions move faster, drive adoption, and all of that, and that's wonderful. But so you're speaking to what we would like to call the future of African development, and I think my next question. So one of the things we did was we sort of like sent out a form, and if you got to ask Vitalik a question today, what would you ask him? And we got like I think about 200 different responses. Unfortunately, I can't ask you all of that. It would be nice if you nod your head and tell me I could email that to you. But for this call, I'm just going to limit those questions to about 3 or 4. And I think the first question I'm going to ask you is Africa is a very, very big continent. It has a lot of people, and we're looking in the next couple of months and years, that population starts to grow and it begins to spiral. And we have a really, really young population. How do you see Ethereum onboarding the next billion users into the ecosystem, into the technology, not just as developers, but content creators, marketing, sales, research, governance? What does that look like for you?
It's a good question and a really important question. And I mean, part of the answer is that like Africa is a big and a diverse place, right? And there's parts of Africa, for example, like individual countries that have serious, like currency crisis situations, political instability, and those kinds of problems. But then there's also like many countries that don't have those issues to anything close to the same extent, and that do look like like basically like rising emerging market countries that even like are increasingly growing as tech centers. And sometimes you have like countries that have both at the same time, right? And so the situation in different places is I think going to be somewhat different. But in terms of the like really big use cases that I've seen, I mean, one is just like going like back to the basics, right? Of like things like savings, like moving money, and especially moving money between countries, making it easier for groups of people to manage money. This is the one thing actually that smart contracts do that a lot of traditional finance does not do, right? And like these fairly basic things that can be a bit boring to computer geeks, but that are still really important to people's needs, are I think something that is important to always remember and always keep in our heads and always continue working on like doing our best to make easier. And part of that is within the crypto space, but part of that is also the bridges between the crypto space and the local economies in those countries. Going beyond that, from what I've seen, there's definitely this part of the African NFT communities that I really respect. Right, like I think I saw some of the work by the NFT artists in Ethiopia and in Kenya, and there's like a lot of really high quality cultural stuff and like things that honestly like personally impress me quite a lot more than the $3 million monkeys you sometimes see coming out of New York. So I think there's a lot of cultural value that's being made, and at the same time, clearly a lot of opportunities for people to get plugged into like global economies and like start earning salaries at a level that's comparable to like what people see in like major rich countries today. And so I think that's those things are valuable, and those in those cases, I think one part of it is just continuing to work on these platforms, continuing to improve them, continuing to do our best to make sure that the right kinds of ideas are being experimented with, right? Especially like there's a thin line between like blockchain based, whether it's NFTs or whether it's games or whether it's like virtual worlds or other kinds of ecosystems that are super valuable versus parts of those spaces that are like basically obfuscated casinos. And I think it's always important to just like for like everyone in any of these like spaces in the world to just keep doing their part to push things toward the value side and away from the casino side that looks impressive in a bull market, but then just breaks as soon as prices start going up or prices stop going up. But also at the same time, continuing to make sure that it's that like we make things like practical to use for just like regular users and just like more mainstream audiences, right? And like there too, I think it's important to do that well. Like there's a difference between bringing people in a way that's maximum speed and bringing people in a way that's safe and also in a way that creates pathways for those people to join the kind of I guess the more like hardcore deep parts of the like blockchain space if later on that's something that they decide that they want to do. So this again gets into things like account abstraction and like giving people different kinds of options for wallet security, but it just also means like in what order people end up hearing different things and just like making sure the right messages get out first.
Couple of questions that I did want to ask, and two things that I heard. One I'm really happy about, and one I want to ask a follow-up question for. So I'm really happy to see that there is some sort of visibility to the NFT space in Africa, and I'm really excited to see all the things that are going to come out from that. And then my follow-up question is surrounding the issue with trade, moving moving money around. And I do have a question here, and I would say if you had, let's say, 30 seconds to answer this question, what would you say? What's your vision for the role of Ethereum in enabling cross-border trade and remittances in Africa and other emerging economies? What would your answer to that be?
Hmm. I think it's a if you're I mean it adds I think like blockchains and cryptocurrencies are starting to show value in making cross-border fintech easier in actually all kinds of ways, even if users end up not using blockchains directly, right? Like I think this is something that can be done in multiple ways, right? Like there are lots of people where they someone in the United States could be a family member, could be an employer, could be a customer. Sends basically just directly sends ETH to them, converting to or USDC or Bitcoin, and does that conversion on their side. The crypto transfer happens, and then like you can sell back at a local exchange. Or there is also a version where basically there are existing local and kind of regional fintech companies, and a lot of the like I've talked to some of these companies, and some of them themselves use cryptocurrency already on the back end just to like make movements of money easier, right? And the users of those companies end up like benefiting from the existence of those networks, even if they don't use them directly. So I think both of those can and will happen. I think a lot of things really depend on like the fine details of the situation, right? And I think this is where there's a lot of value that comes from the fact that like Ethereum and even USDC and Bitcoin and all of these things, like they are sometimes partially and sometimes fully decentralized networks, right? Like there is no master plan that says like this is how we're going to like tell people to do things and that will make their economy more efficient. It's much more of a tool where like basically like 80% of the creativity has to come from like people on the ground based on like what's actually convenient for them and what their situations are. And so the actual solutions that people use often end up looking quite different depending on the context.
Okay, I like that answer, and we're gonna go a bit deeper into that. So Africans have African-centric problems, and when we start to talk about all the solutions that are being built, and I like what you said about not wanting to like create this one master plan that sort of directs everyone to do things this particular way, because it probably wouldn't reflect the different experiences. So here's an idea. If you actually, it's not if you're currently addressing developers here in Africa. So what would you say are critical user experience features and applications that you think need to be developed to attract users? Because Africa is quite diverse, right? So what do you think are these critical user-friendly features and applications that need to be developed, to drive diverse adoption and participation, and attract and retain these people based on all the experiences you've had across the ecosystem? What do you think that looks like?
Okay. So I think to start with the kind of basics that I think are common across, like basically almost all emerging economies, right? Like one is fees need to be lower. Another is there need to be better ways for people to have their own accounts that where those accounts are not just like vulnerable to being lost or stolen if people make a mistake. There's there needs to be better education on like what kinds of things make sense to use, what kinds of things like look like really good ideas but actually are totally not a good ideas, and what kinds of things don't make sense. When you get into more situation specific stuff, I think one major aspect of that is just different categories of applications, right? So for example, like we talk a lot about DAOs, right? And like we talk a lot about these like using smart contracts to enable these kind of pieces of economies that involve interactions between like many groups of participants in a more complicated way. And the thing that I found about DAOs is that 20% of a DAO is the tech. The 80% of a DAO is the culture around the tech, right? If you wants to improve if you wants to write software to make a better DAO, you don't even focus on the voting rules. You focus on the discussion rules, and the this is the place where I think there's a lot of things that differ for different contexts because there's a lot of existing cultures around doing things in groups that like you can leverage, right? So like there's like these concepts of like rotating savings and credit associations. There's these concepts of group insurance in that exist in various different forms. There and like that might be like implemented by smart contracts, or it might even be implemented by like some group of people managing things on behalf of a much larger group of people. And like that's a setup that might actually make sense, especially in a context where there's a large group of people that like don't yet have the education to either like manage all of the crypto stuff by themselves, or just like don't even have access to the internet yet. Um, there's you know in some of these like decentralized insurance situations, there's a lot of just differences in what kind of insurance people want, like what kind of form factors people are used to already. So once you get into application specific things, like in the NFT markets as well, like I think there's a lot of application specific stuff, especially now that we're trying to, like go beyond sort of just NFTs being, like tokens whose price goes up and down that you can speculate on, and really trying to make them more interesting. Like there's a lot of these differences, and so really, like paying attention to the differences between like individual applications is probably the thing that differs across context the most.
Thank you for that. So here's a very, very personal question that I know that as soon as I ask it, everybody's going to be listening. So I'm gonna have to turn off my screen for this one. We want to create and contribute and participate and basically create more visibility for Africans, both as users, developers, and everything in between. If you were to, close your eyes and guess what the next thing being built from Africa would be, what would you say that would be? And I ask this for two reasons. The first reason is because I know there are a lot of people here who have they've gone through Web3 Bridge, the cohorts and everything. They've gone through iVersity, and they've picked up these skills, and the question is, what is next? So if you were to close your eyes and say, this is like the next big thing that is going to come out of Africa, what would it be?
I think one part of my answer might just be wallets. And I think the reason why I say wallets is that, like, wallets aren't just things for people to hold coins and move coins, right? Like, it's it's almost kind of a misnomer. Like, it's a bad name. Like, basically, the interfaces that people use to interact with the blockchain world to hold their assets, whether it's tokens or NFTs or something else, to participate in applications and all of these things. And the reason why I think it's good to focus on that is that, like, one is that there's a lot of new technology that's coming out, right? And the ecosystem is changing. Like, we have account abstraction, we have layer twos, we we have cross layer twos, we have like applications, and whenever there's these new technologies, that's kind of a reset, right? And a reset creates a new opportunity. A reset creates a new opportunity because the people that have been here for 10 years do not have a 10-year head start in those new things, because those new things have not existed. Now, the reason why it's important is because, the reason why it's important is just because it's it is the window between people and the world, and it can basically make or break whether a person has a good experience or a bad experience. And the other really important aspect of these is that, like, wallets are very much not a cookie cutter thing, right? Like, if a team from China makes a ZK EVM and a team from Africa makes a ZK EVM, there's nothing that is like there isn't any kind of anything that, like, I can predict that would be like fundamentally different about the two, that would, like, really like make one more useful for China and one more useful for Africa, right? Because a ZK EVM is like this really like back-endy tool that's like very much a pure math problem. But a wallet is not like that, right? A wallet is something where I do not believe that there will be one wallet to rule them all. I do not even believe that there will be five wallets to rule them all, just because I think different kinds of wallets really make sense for different kinds of users that are focused on different applications. And like the best teams that I've seen, they like really the most successful teams that I've seen, they work really hard on like thinking through what kinds of things the users care about, what kinds of things the users want, and like plugging that into what kinds of things do like different protocols provide, and what are the best ways to show that to users, right? And so it's something that's really like dependent on what a user's particular needs are. But like it is also it is in its own way a technical challenge, but it's a technical challenge where like the technical parts have less to do with like the kinds of like cryptography that gets like developed in academic labs where you really need to have been in the space for 5 years to like really have a chance. It's the kind of stuff where like it's user facing software. And user facing software is something that people everywhere, like or anywhere, there are lots of people that have like many years of experience in working on that. And so you basically take that expertise and combine it with some level of understanding of like what it is that people that a like a blockchain does, and how you interface with that, and what it's possible to get out of that, and you have a wallet. So I think I mean, it's definitely not the only place to start, but I think it's one place that's particularly promising.
You heard it here first. Wallets. And I think I can say that you're going to be seeing a lot more wallets coming out of Africa. Yeah, that's gonna happen. So with that in context, we still do have, to talk about all the changes that are coming in the future. And because those changes are happening, one of the, well, not the biggest challenge, but it's still a challenge, especially this side of the world, is what technologies, what skill sets are kind of meta right now, right? Because everyone here is here because they kind of want to see what direction they sort of should like align to make sure that they're building in the same direction the community is facing. So you have people that are asking questions: what do I learn next? What skills do I need to pick up? What technologies do I need to familiarize myself with? What don't I need to pay attention to? And they're listening. And what's going to be your answer to that?
It's valuable to understand a lot, like a lot of different things from a at least a level of understanding what they provide, right? Like I think it's valuable to really gain a black box understanding of lots of different parts of the ecosystem, right? So if you look at ZK snarks, for example, right? ZK snarks are big. ZK snarks are super important, and they're going to get more important. Like I have fully said that I believe ZK snarks are going to be as important as blockchains to the success of this space. But like you can understand ZK snarks at a really deep level of like understanding, like this is exactly how you convert a program into a polynomial. This is exactly the polynomial equation that you are trying to solve. Here, you got your like c of p of x, like divided by z of x equals h of x, and like knowing what that equation means, and like what part the witness is. But then you can also like just understand it at the level of like this is what the technology does, right? Like I have a program, and I want to like prove the result of that program computed on some private data that I have and some public data. And here are some basic ways to use this technology in order to build particular applications. So I actually wrote a blog post on this topic. If you go to Vitalik.ca on June 15th, 2022, it's called Some Ways to Use ZK Snarks for Privacy. And like I talk about the value of zk snarks, just like not at a sort of deep math of how they work level, but just on a how to use them level, right? And I think zk snarks are not the only example of this. I think account abstraction and ERC4337 is something that's very valuable to like gain that black box level of understanding for. Layer 2 scaling is another good one. The difference between layer 2s and like rollups and validiums, layer 3s, the way that like different kinds of privacy solutions work, like basically just have all of these like try to get at least like that black box, how do I use it level of understanding for all of the like different key building blocks of the space. And if you have that, then like you're not going to literally be able to code up the entire stack from scratch, but like you don't need to code the entire stack from scratch, right? Like if you decide that you're passionate about one particular area and you are a tech geek and you want to get into that, then like you can, right? And a lot of people have tried hard to like make the information available and more accessible to people. But if you do not, then that's still enough to build applications. Like the thing that's possible today that was not possible 3 years ago is that today you can build an application that uses zk snarks without having any idea how a zk snark works, as long as you understand what is the property that a zk snark provides. And so I think having that black box level understanding of like basically all of the new technologies, blockchains themselves, zk snarks, layer 2s, account abstraction, privacy solutions. If you have that, then that just improves you, like just gives you a strong understanding of like what kinds of things actually are feasible and practical to build. So I think that's something that's important. Another thing that I think is valuable to know is I think it's valuable to understand some of the history of the space, like some of the experiments that people have tried over the last 10 years and some of the things that have failed, right? So if you're interested in governance, for example, then understand what happened with EOS and some of the problems that we saw with EOS as a delegated proof of stake. If you want to understand like smart contract coding, then look at some of the instances where smart contracts have seen bugs. If you care about stablecoins, then like understand why Terra blew up and understand why MakerDAO and Rai have not blown up, but also understand like maybe what some of the problems with MakerDAO have been. Right, like if you want to build new things, like basically like understand the 10-year history of things that have been tried and things that have either failed due to lack of interest or possibly failed in some way that blew up catastrophically, and just sort of let the the wisdom of those experiences become part of you. So I think like understanding like the tech in the like at this sort of black box, like not like everything about how it works, but like how can it help me level, and understanding history are the two places that I would start.
That's very, very insightful. Makes a lot of sense. Understand what came before, understand what's currently being talked about, and leverage on all the advantages of all the solutions that have already been created. Yes? Okay. So I'm gonna round this up with one last question. And it's not really a question, it's more letting you round this up in saying, so we're big fans of call to actions, right? And if you are going to give us as developers, as people who want to play in the space of governance, security, what would that call to action be from you?
Again, I think one of them I've basically like said is like always importance to learn. The other one is like build and like really specifically like really start tuning the building from just like doing thing like doing things with the mindset of like we're building toys, which I think is like it is the mindset that crypto had for I think maybe the first 5 to 8 years of its existence, to a mindset of like we're really building for the mainstream, but we're trying to build for the mainstream while still maintaining the spirit and values of the space. Really like think and care about the problems of the user, but at the same time, don't sacrifice everything in order to satisfy the wishes of the user in a short term way. And like really, also build things today in mind with the not just the other pieces that are being built today in mind, but with the other pieces that will become available tomorrow, right? Like I think if you had been building a year ago, then you should have already even a year ago have had the mindset that you will be on layer twos from day one, right? And I think that's obviously even more true today. And I mean the other and so if you want to add to like layer twos today, that like what things to keep in mind that are the things of tomorrow. Account abstraction is one. I think taking privacy seriously is also going to be one that's growing over the next couple of years. Taking security seriously, obviously, right? Sometimes the project that emerges out of the battlefield as the winner is not the project that makes the most dazzling charge to the front, but it's the project that survives when everything else blows up. And I think Ethereum's own history of success is a history that is definitely not a history of beating everyone else to number one. It is a history of surviving while lots of other things blow up. And so, basically, yeah, build for the people, build with the future in mind, and build to last. And I think if you and build in a way that like stays true to the values of the space, which I think is actually kind of the same thing as building to last. So I think if you do those things, then you're in a very good position to be successful.
Very much. Build for the future, build with the values, and I think those two particular points they resonate with me, I think, the most. It's been an honor. Thank you for giving us the time. Guys, Vitalik.